Our,
Meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
all right, it's 6:30 p.m., June 3rd, 2026. This is Chair David Ngaji calling the meeting to order. Anson, please do a roll call.
Okay, when I call your name, please respond. Watson?
Here.
Okay. Bozel? Okay, she's on here. Nagaji?
Here.
Fukumoto?
Selected as the restaurant manager.
Okay,
In a short
he's here. Fields?
We treat ourselves like we treat ourselves. You brush.
Okay. Lee?
Squad.
Here.
Okay. Can you mute your mic? Okay. Cough?
You built this.
Tom? Okay. Moylan? Okay. Ellen Sofio?
Here.
Okay. Quano?
Here.
Okay. Fox? Not here. Okay. Mashreki? He's not here. Carter? Jane? We have 8. We don't have quorum.
All right, Anson, please let me know when we do get quorum. For now, we'll just start off with the first responder monthly reports. Honolulu Fire Department. Honolulu Fire Department, are you ready?
Hello. Good evening. It is great to be here. I'll read our statistics for last month. We had 6 activated alarms with no fires, 31 medical calls, 1 motor vehicle crash, and 1 mountain rescue. Then our fire tip is hurricane season has just started. It runs from June 1st to November 30th. It's time to check your kits, refresh your supplies, and ensure everyone in the family knows your plan. You can visit honolulu.gov/dem to learn about the risk and hazard and how to be prepared and what to do in the event a hurricane threatens our islands. Some bullet points here are: build your 14-day disaster supply kit to include everything your household would need to survive for 2 weeks without utilities or access to outside supplies. Check your insurance policy to determine what, if any, hurricane-related damage is covered by your policy. Standard homeowner and renter's insurance do not include hurricane or flood coverage. Get appropriate supplies to protect the windows. They need to be sized for your window well in advance of the storm, and sign up to get storm alerts direct to your phone at hnlalert.gov. And then we were not here a couple months ago because we were at a mountain rescue, but we do have an answer to one of the questions why we respond to medical calls. They answered that. I don't think they answered it last month. So it is per city and county of Honolulu Charter Section 6-1004.c, page 50. The fire chief shall provide emergency medical care and general safety measures to the public. Thus, we are obliged to send fire resources to medical responses. We try and preserve our fire response capabilities and save costs by our response protocols, which state in our policies and procedures, if the HFD companies shall be dispatched to medical emergency when the HFD's response time will be faster than the EMS response time. The HFD shall also be dispatched to medical emergencies that are life-threatening or potentially life-threatening. Any questions?
Yes, any questions or comments for, just, go ahead. Oh, just go to the microphone so they can hear you online.
Wait.
Yeah.
Just one question.
Yes.
On the automobile accident, Did that also include the one that hit our telephone pole by our house?
I was not working that day, so I am not sure if that is it is that one.
All right, any other questions or comments for Honolulu Fire Department? Anyone in, Glenn? I'm sorry, Brett, please go ahead.
Hi, Brett Pershige, Mānoa resident. Just had a question, since they're doing this, I guess, lessons learned session later this month about the Kona low storm. I was just wondering, you know, for I think I saw you guys, your trucks by the bridge over here, by the Woodlawn Bridge.
Yeah, we were here.
What was your action that you guys were doing during the storm?
Well, it flooded all here, so this is all flooded. And a van of people decided to try to drive through it, so they got stuck. So we went to get them, but some good Samaritans grabbed them. But while that was happening, some other lady drove through. She got stuck. So firefighter one, Chase Carvero, picked her up, carried her out. And then as we right there, back there. And then as I think the emergency, the city and county ELNHR people were clearing stuff up, so as the water dropped, we moved cars out of the way because it moved some cars. So we tried to get cars out of the way to get this street open. By the time that was done, we were basically finished. We were also called to another call of Woodlawn, but we couldn't go up that street because too much water and rocks was coming down during that time. Someone wanted us to stop this pool from flooding, but we couldn't make it. No, that was I think that's ELNHR, or it was City and County, but it was not us. I saw them. Yeah.
All right, thanks. And thanks, Brett. And I don't see any other hands in person or online, so I think we're going to move on. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
We'll see
guys. Have a good week.
see you in August because we're on recess in July. All right, going now to Honolulu Police Department. Do we have anyone from Honolulu Police Department online?
Hi, good evening. Lieutenant Amir from Honolulu Police Department. We're going to go over last month's statistics. So motor vehicle thefts were at 10, burglaries 4, thefts at 9, unauthorized entry into motor vehicles 3, total cost for service 5,573. Our tips is actually going to echo what the Honolulu Fire Department had just covered. Again, we are in hurricane season. Nothing in people in Hawaii we're not used to. High wind, storm surge, heavy rain threats. I was going to cover some of the tips that HFD had brought up, but just in some other things, choosing to decide whether to shelter in place versus evacuation, things to consider, if your house is a single wall, older house built it prior to 95, and it has not been retrofitted to withstand hurricane winds, that is something to consider. A lot of homes in Hawaii are single walled. Also have a plan ready to evacuate if you need to or not, as well as an option, whether it be pre-planning to stay with a friend or family member, that kind of stuff. Just call them up and say, hey, is there anything, if we have to evacuate, can we come over at that time? And other things too, like generators are also an option. Generators, they always sell out just prior to an event or a storm. But if that is something that is feasible that somebody needs, considering things like oxygen tanks, breathing machines, that kind of stuff, just to power those machines, if that's something you know somebody needs or you need, that, again, that's just something to consider. Yeah. So that just goes along with building your 14-day disaster supply kit as well. Okay, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant. Do we have any questions or comments for Honolulu Police Department? Anyone in person? All right, anyone online? All right, thank you, Lieutenant. We'll see you again in August because July is our recess.
Thank you. Aloha.
All right, thanks, Ensign. So I'm gonna, if it's okay with everyone, I'm gonna take an item out of order because I've been told that we do have a quorum now, and there's a couple people who are interested in filling a vacancy. Are they both here? And I believe that one of them might need to leave early. So if you're interested in moving that forward, I'm going to take us out of order for the filling of vacancies. And it's okay. Sorry about that. This is item Roman numeral, what is it? Roman numeral 7, letter A, filling of vacancies. So it's my understanding that for those who haven't heard, we have a vacancy in Subdistrict 1 because Robert Zane, a longtime member of the board, recently left the district. And I believe there are 2 people here who are interested in filling that vacancy. So at this point, I'll ask them to raise their hands and introduce themselves. And I saw your hand first, so Akana, go ahead. No, come to the microphone so we can hear you.
Chair, I think also there's somebody online who wants to.
So I guess if there's an election, you'll have a chance to explain more about who you are and why you're interested in serving. For now, I just wanted to confirm, who are you and are you interested in serving?
Yep. So hello, everyone. My name is Makana Hicksku. I am interested in serving in the just Subdistrict 1 position I backman for it in the previous election.
Okay, and I believe we have someone online. Would that person like to introduce themselves as a interested candidate?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
This is Seth Kamemoto. I'm a member of Subdistrict 1. I've been active on the board just, not on the board, but active in these meetings in the past, and I am interested in serving. Thank you.
All right, and before I open up for nominations, is there anyone else who wants to put themselves forward as a potential candidate? I see someone.
Hi, everyone. Ooh, I'm not that tall. My name is Corey Kataoka, and I would love to serve on the board. I'm interested.
All right, so for procedure, for a person to be considered as a candidate, they need at least 1 board member to nominate them. You don't need a second, you just need 1 board member to nominate them.
Sorry,
So,
Chair, can I confirm?
Yes.
Are you, Corey, are you looking also for number 1 or number 4? Where do you live? So, sorry, are you Subdistrict 1 or 4?
oh,
4.
So
Okay.
you're subdistrict 4. Okay. No, so the gentleman who just introduced himself is Subdistrict 4. The first 2 are Subdistrict 1. So we'll do this by subdistrict in order. So first, for the 2 people who introduced themselves as being interested in Subdistrict 1, which is Makana here and also Seth online, do we have people who are willing to nominate them?
I'll nominate Seth. Ellen Watson nominates Seth.
I'll
Okay.
second.
All right. So Watson nominates, and we don't technically need a second, but Bowisel seconds. And do we have any nominations for Makana? We need at least 1 nomination. Going once.
I nominate. I nominate.
All right, Member Koff has nominated Makana. So at this point, I'm going to go in the order that you introduce yourselves. And I'm going to open it up to Makana. Tell us as much as you want about yourself. Tell us about why you're interested in serving, so on, whatever you want us to hear before we vote. And then after you've gone, I'll turn it over to Seth to do the same thing. So go ahead.
I'll keep it short for you guys. So again, my name is Makana. I'm a 4th generation resident of Mānoa, married to my wife up there. Actually, same street that my grandpa lives on. So I'm interested in serving on the board. I recently moved back to Mānoa. I grew up in Pupuke. My dad was raised here. I'm starting to raise a family here with my wife. So, and I'm actively engaged in some local politics, particularly around housing. So some of you, I'm not sure, but you may have seen my name in an email to you earlier this legislative session, alerting you folks to a bill about removing minimum parking requirements. So that was one of the ways I've been engaged with the board here. But yeah, just interested in serving the community, interested in serving Subdistrict 1. Long time multi-generation family there. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Makana. And now I'm going to turn it over to Seth for the same thing. Introduce yourself, say why you're interested in running, whatever you want us to know before we ask you questions and cast our votes.
Yeah, hi, Seth Kamemoto. I'm a third generation Manoa resident. My grandfather and father were farmers up kind of by the cemetery. And my reason for being on the board. So I got kind of involved a couple of years ago on some projects that were affecting Manoa, and I just felt that there wasn't a lot of I guess information on the community side, as far as impacts and things, and that's where I got very interested in being able to provide information to my community and to be able to potentially serve in that capacity on the board. So that's why I'm interested. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Seth. So before we do the vote, I'll ask, do the members of the board, either in person or online, want to ask any questions of our two candidates before we vote? If so, please raise your hand. Member Fukumoto?
Could I ask a point of parliamentary procedure? Isn't a quorum majority required?
Yes,
Or-
and we have 10.
Right.
Oh, you mean to, yes. So
Right, so it could be that because we have only 10 and the vote gets split, you need 9 votes.
yes, so Member Fukumoto is correct. For a person to be appointed to the board, they need to receive 9 votes. So I was going to ask for people to vote their preference, and if one side wins but doesn't get 9 votes, I was going to ask if people are willing to switch their votes to get someone 9. So any questions for the Moylan?
Recently, I remember getting an email from someone expressing an interest in running, but I don't remember who it was. It was Seth? Okay.
I did send an email, yes.
All right. Thanks very much.
All right, any other questions from board members to the two candidates? Anyone online, hand raised?
Wait,
Yes, Member Koff, you have a question you want to ask the candidates?
no, sorry, my bad. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, looks like there's no more questions. So Anson, we do have two candidates. Please take us through the roll call vote.
Okay, when I call your name for sub-district 1.
As there's,
What are the names? What are the two?
so the two clarifications are, sorry, could you both please say your full names for the record again?
My name is Makana Hicks Koo.
My name is Seth Kamemoto.
So
Seth and.
So we're gonna use, so according to Anson here, we're gonna use first names. So this is gonna be Makana. The person online is gonna be Seth. So for either Makana or Seth. Okay. Anson, please do the roll call.
When I call your name, please say Seth or Makana. Watson?
Say again. So Seth, just say Seth.
Seth
I don't
or
have to say
Makana?
the last name. So Seth, yeah.
Okay. Seth. Okay, Bozo?
Seth.
Okay, Nagaji?
Seth.
Fukumoto?
Seth?
Okay, Lee?
Seth? Who you voting on?
Okay, Koff? You're muted.
Seth,
Okay. Chong?
Seth?
Okay, Moylan?
Makana.
Okay. Sophia?
Seth,
Okay. Kawano?
Seth,
Okay. Is Mishaki making sure. Okay. They're both not here. Okay. Seth has 9. Makana has 1. It's Seth.
So Seth has been elected, and you said you confirmed his residency, right? All right. So should we go into brief recess to? Actually, no. Let's do the other one first. So Seth, we're gonna do the other person first for subdistrict 4, and then we'll come back to you to do the oath. Where do you go? Oh, could the person who's interested in filling subdistrict 4 come up if they're here?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I actually I'm trying to figure exactly what section I'm in. 2810 Oahu Ave. I might lose out the technical issue here.
I can do it.
Sorry about that. I need to change it. Yeah, 2010. Yep.
I'm sorry, we're trying to verify which subdistrict he's in. This is taking us a minute.
In the meantime, Chair, can he give us a little background?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Bio?
You can tell us who you are, why you're interested in serving.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that.
Again, my name is Corey Kataoka. I am new to Manoa, so I am pretty excited to be here. I used to live in Kapahulu. I thought that was the best neighborhood, but actually I found out that I was wrong. It's Manoa. So I am the director for Beata Home Healthcare. So we take care of senior citizens in their homes, and we try to keep people in their home. We have a lot of clients in Manoa. I've been doing that for about 4 years, and it's basically about building communities and helping senior citizens and people in need. And I have a passion for that, and especially in the neighborhoods. I would love to see this venue and online filled up. And I think that I might be able to help do that, to get people more involved in the community and advocate for Manoa, whether it's zone 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, 6, 100. It doesn't really matter to me. Manoa is Manoa. And I would love to get us filled up and have a community where we're all coming together. We did the everyone, you guys seen the yellow shirts, the safety, the watch protection shirts? No. So apparently they used to be really popular, and we used to have a big community around that, and we don't anymore. And I would love to see that. We don't have a lot of crime, which is nice, but if we can reduce it even more, that'd be great. And I think we do that as a community along with working with law enforcement.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
thank you.
So I got turned over to Anson now.
Again, you said you live in Oahu Avenue
2810.
2080. Okay. Unfortunately, that
Dang.
is in Subdistrict 3.
That's
Sorry.
okay. Next time.
I'm sorry, but we'll let you know if there's a vacancy that opens up in Subdistrict 3.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if not, you can run for elections in about a year. It'll be in March of 27. March, April 27 is when the elections for the new term open up. So you can also put yourself forward then.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
And I see a raised hand from Dylan Armstrong. Please go ahead.
Aloha, mai kako. Chair Nagaji, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Dylan Armstrong here, former member of Manoa Neighborhood Board. I am able at this time to fill a vacancy for Subdistrict 4 if the board does need a candidate.
All right. Dylan Armstrong has put himself forward as a candidate. We have a nomination. Moylan nominates. All right. Member Armstrong is nominated. And before I ask him for any statements, I'll just ask real quick, is there anyone else who wants to be nominated for Subdistrict 4? If so, please announce yourself. Going once, going twice. All right. Looks like our only candidate to possibly fill the seat is Dylan Armstrong, nominated by Chris Moylan, member Chris Moylan. So Dylan, before we vote, I'll just ask, a lot of us know you already, but for those who don't, tell us who you are, tell us why you're interested, all that.
Certainly, Chair Nagaji. I first joined Manoa Neighborhood Board in 2015 and served into 2022. I have had a 2-decade career in local, state, and federal government, as well as private sector consulting, mainly in the areas of environmental management and urban planning, which includes disaster preparedness, as many of you are not looking forward to hurricane season's unusual underlying weather this year. So I do have some relevant experience to bring to bear for the board. This vacancy seems to have existed for a while. I'm a bit more available these days, so hopefully that will help the board. Happy to help and answer questions. Aloha.
And I'll just note before I open up to questions, Anson did inform me that he's been in touch with Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Armstrong's documents check out, he is indeed qualified to run for Subdistrict 4. So before we do the roll call vote, I'll just ask, are there any board members who want to ask any questions of Dylan Armstrong before we do the vote? Anyone in person? Anyone online? All right, seeing and hearing none. Ensign, please take us through the roll call. Even though he's running uncontested, we still need 9 affirmative votes for him to get seated.
Okay. When I call your name, please say Dylan. Oh, Armstrong. Okay. Watson.
Dylan,
Okay. Bozo.
Dylan,
Okay. Nagaji.
Dylan,
Okamoto.
Dylan,
Okay. Lee.
Dylan,
Koff.
Dylan,
Chong.
Dylan,
Moylan.
Dylan.
Sophia.
Dylan,
Guano.
Dylan,
And okay. Yep. He's on. He has 10 votes.
all right, thank you, Ensign. Congratulations, Seth Kamoto and Dylan Armstrong. So they've both been elected. They both submitted their documents. So at this time, I'm going to call a brief 1, maybe 2-minute recess so that they can get sworn in. All right, 6:57 p.m. Taking us out of recess, we've had our 2 new members, Kawamoto and Armstrong, sworn in. Before we move on, I'll just say I see that Makana Hicks is still in. I'm sorry you didn't get it today, but thanks for putting yourself forward. And if there's ever another vacancy, then you're free to try again. So the good news is that we now have all 17 of our board seats filled. But now I have to go to some not so good news. So we're going to Roman numeral 3 presentations. Item A. This is I'm sorry that we need to sit through this, but it's unfortunately become necessary. This is reminders about decorum and respect. So essentially, I believe it's important to give several comments and updates to the board and community due to a recurring lack of decorum and lack of respect among some members of the board. I'm not going to name them, but those who've been involved in the situations are probably going to know who they are. And this is going to take me about 5 minutes. I apologize, but there's a lot here. So over the past year, there's been a lot of situations where board members have made personal attacks or have come very close to making personal attacks or have spoken in disrespectful ways or have used a hostile tone of voice. In some cases, I've called this out as inappropriate. In other cases, I pretty much let it slide, which might have been a mistake. In any case, this topic's on the agenda, and this presentation by me is on the agenda because in the last several months, but especially in the last 30 days, things have apparently escalated. First of all, 2 weeks ago, there was a committee meeting. It was a very contentious meeting. There was a lot of arguing, but most concerning, one of the board members who was present at the committee meeting 2 weeks ago used a phone to covertly record the entire meeting. And the other attendees at the meeting did not learn that they were being recorded until after the fact. Second of all, I've received reports that board members have been arguing with each other in parking lots. It is my understanding this has happened twice. Each incident was a different board member doing it, so I've been told. And these incidents were described to me as confronting and berating. Third of all, things appear to be getting even worse between some members of the board. And I say that because multiple board members, who again, I'm not going to name, have spoken with me and they've requested that other board members, who I'm not going to name, be expelled from our meetings for disruptive behavior. Multiple board members have also spoken to me and expressed a desire to contact the city in order to make formal accusations against fellow board members for allegedly breaking the law. So before I say the rest of it, I'm going to point out that we are at the end of an officer term. There's going to be recess in July, followed by an officer election in August. So I need to say all this with a disclaimer that I might not be the chairperson in 2 months for the next term. However, in light of what's been going on between some of our board members, which has apparently become bad enough that it's spilling over into altercations outside of our meetings, I need to flag a few things. First, as I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of times when I've noticed disrespectful behavior and I let it slide because I didn't think it was that bad. And that needs to change because apparently when board members are allowed to disrespect each other, even in ways that are fairly minor or indirect, it still escalates and turns into a problem. Secondly, the Proactive Solutions Committee is set to expire in August unless it's renewed for another year. Frankly, it's my recommendation that the Proactive Solutions Committee be discontinued and allowed to sunset in August. And I'm going to call a spade here. I've noticed that nearly all of our worst fights that have had the worst disrespect among board members have involved resolutions and other topics that have come out of the Proactive Solutions Committee. And honestly, I think that if the committee is going to lead to this ridiculous level of hostility between board members where it's spilling over and people are arguing in parking lots about it, then I don't think the committee should exist anymore. Thirdly, and maybe most importantly, I really am going to ask the board members who have been fighting each other to dial it back and de-escalate things. For better or worse, the neighborhood board system is the public face of citizen participation. When people go on YouTube or Lelo or TV, they see us. We're also an advisory board, which means that we don't have any power. Our only quote unquote power is that we can ask people nicely to do things for us. So at an absolute minimum, our board really needs to have enough dignity and respect and civility that the city and the state can take us seriously when we make requests. I do think, again, that we need to start by having several board members mutually dial things back. It does not matter whose fault it is or who started saying bad things first. This behavior really has gotten out of control, and I think it needs to stop before it worsens. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to the board members if any of them want to make comments on that topic or any responses. Does anyone want to speak? Anyone online? Member Koff, please go ahead.
Well, I think in some sense, what you're bringing up is a very healthy thing. When you have a community and people sharing their views honestly and openly, there is bound to be a difference of opinion and values, different values. So that's a healthy thing. And what's happened in our society, I believe very sadly, is that we don't have a way of bridging that with some sort of, if you will, conflict resolution or whatever. But at the very bare minimum, I do believe, of course, that people have the right to their expression and their beliefs. And if we ground ourselves in that and realize that we can say at the end of the day is, you haven't convinced me, I still believe what I do. That's that, and that's that. And that's as best we can do. But that's an honest forum. We've actually told our truth. And so that's my suggestion, if you will. Okay.
All right. Anyone else want to speak on the topic? Anyone online? All right. Doesn't look like we have anyone else. Oh, Member Armstrong, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Nagaji. I do have some relevant experience to bear on this because for my final 3 years or 4 years on the board, I was chairperson, and there was a very contentious issue beginning in my final months as chairperson. We dealt with a number of contentious issues before that, but what I noticed immediately as it affected decorum and following the rules of the neighborhood plan was that there was a lot of tension within the community as to not understanding what the powers of the neighborhood board are. And that is something that I would not assume that everyone, even just in this small meeting, would necessarily be on the same page as to. So it's very important to clarify that the neighborhood board does not have the power to enact laws like the legislature. So for instance, if the board is considering a resolution about a new idea that is coming from the board, it has no inherent power behind it. It is purely advisory. And therefore, even if the board passes a resolution or a memo or a letter that is in some way out of sync with an element or the majority of the community, it doesn't necessarily immediately change anything. So I think there's a certain misunderstanding of threat level, which I'm going to very directly implicate as being connected to a former re-election campaign. And I did not appreciate how my own person was dragged into it at the time. And I think for 4 years, this misunderstanding has really persisted as to what the neighborhood board does and does not do. Mahalo.
All right. Thank you, Dylan. Are there any other comments that people want to make on this topic before I say some final comments and we move on? Anyone online? All right. Before we move on, I'm just going to read one thing. And this is a quotation from the neighborhood plan. So, for the past few years, it's been the practice of the chair to essentially call people out for personal attacks and for that to be the basis to tell someone they're acting inappropriately. However, I did, thanks to Tom Heinrich, actually read the statute. So per section 2-14-118 discussion, letter A, when a board member or person properly before the board wishes to speak, the member or person shall address the chair, be recognized before proceeding, and shall confine remarks to the subject under discussion. Now, here's the part that's relevant. Shall confine remarks to the subject under discussion, avoiding personalities and abusive language. Remarks that include profanity, are disrespectful, disparaging, or abusive will be considered violations of order and decorum. So I flagged that because going forward, because again of how things seem to escalate when they're not called out and when it's not said that they're inappropriate, I'm still going to call out personal attacks if I see personal attacks. I'm also broadening that rule. So if there's, like I said, profanity, being disrespectful, disparaging, being abusive, which is much broader, then, you know, I'm going to start interrupting that because, again, I think it needs to get cut off before people start going tit for tat and escalating things. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. Hopefully, we don't need to go through that again. And is Tom Eisen ready? All right, going to Roman numeral 3E. This is the presentation on Hawaii's environmental review process. Remember, Sophia requested a couple months ago when we finally got time for it on the agenda, and it's with Tom Eisen.
Hello, Chair. I guess I'll be addressing you, but this is kind of intended to be an informational process so that everyone can learn about the state's environmental review process. My name's Tom Eisen. I'm a senior planner with the state's environmental review program, which is a part of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Some people may know of us from our former name, the Office of Environmental Quality Control. Really just rolls right off the tongue. About a few years ago, the legislature administratively transferred us into the existing Office of Planning. So now we're a program within that. But a lot of people may be familiar with the general concepts of environmental assessments and environmental impact statements. And our program is at the center of all of that. And I'll try to give a pretty brief overview of the process and some of the concepts behind it, because there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding about what it does and what it doesn't intend to do. So you can go to the next. My computer has having a meltdown right now, so I'm having Anson take care of these things. But and unfortunately, there's a lot of words in the whole program. Okay, so I don't expect you all to be reading everything. I'll try to summarize it. A lot of the presentations that I make, while they're somewhat to community groups, and also to agency personnel that have to implement the process. So we really get into some of the nuances, and there's a lot of wormholes you can crawl down. And I spend a lot of time with that with agency people, but I'll try to keep this at a broad level so it could be more understood. The process was established in statute, chapter 343. And a lot of people call the whole process just by 343 as kind of a code name for the whole environmental review process, because that's the statute that it is. Other names, EPA, which is a takeoff from NEPA, which is the federal process, which is very similar to ours. Our system was modeled after that. And so some people call it HEPA Hawaii. Thing is that there's no Environmental Policy Act that HEPA would actually mean anything. So it's just a term that people use. But I included these two paragraphs from the purpose section of the laws. The first one indicates through a whole bunch of words that the reason for this environmental review process is to try to get better planning, good planning that involves objective information about the projects or the actions that is being undertaken, with the idea of trying to integrate the environmental effects into the planning processes. And the second paragraph touches on public participation. And that was another concept that was recognized by the legislature as an important reason for this process to exist. And so the process very much is intended to include public participation in it. So everyone's involvement and paying attention to things is encouraged. But the role of the public is, there's a lot of, get into some of the specific process. There's like a time and a place for public input. And your input is best served when it fits into the system, as opposed to just spitwads thrown around and hoping they stick somewhere. So speaking of, decorum and things like that, it's good to pay attention to the process and work within it. Okay, then next thing. So some core concepts. Yeah, you're not going to be able to read this, but probably the first and most important thing is that the process is a disclosure process. It is not a permit, it is not an approval. The environmental review process is intended to disclose information about a proposed project prior to it getting its permits, or whether the permits are approved or rejected. But the environmental review process in and of itself is a means to tease out objective information to give to the decision makers. It is not a approval. It is not a permit. It is not intended to be a judgment on the merits of the project. It's just supposed to be objective information presented to all parties by it. So that is often people try to use the environmental review process to oppose projects, and it's not a good tool for that, and it complicates things. So it's best if just realize that the intent is just to get good information out. Okay, another point is that not every action goes through this HEPA process. There are triggers, and there's another slide that identifies what the various triggers are, but a proposed action has to hit one of these triggers for the process to apply. And the most common trigger is the use of state or county lands or funds. So basically anything that government does is generally captured by it. And in general, private actions on private property is not a trigger. So that's why building an individual house, or a whole lot of things that happen with privately funded projects on private property, do not have to go through this process. A lot of people expect that there might be an environmental assessment or environmental impact statement for everything that happens, and it was never intended to be that way, and that's certainly not the case. Another important point is that it's important to recognize the different roles of parties, stakeholders in the process, and applicants and agencies are two very key things. Basically, who is proposing the action? Is it the action being proposed by an applicant, a private party, or by a state or county agency? Because there's slightly different rules and processes depending on who is proposing the action. And maybe taking a step back, the whole point of this is to, when an action is in its early phase of being developed, is when the environmental review is intended to be done, so that the project can, if there are environmental impacts that potentially can be lessened, mitigated, changed somehow, so it won't have these environmental impacts. And that's the purpose, is to do this process early on in the action. When an applicant is proposing something, they need a permit, a discretionary consent for HEPA to apply. And quite often this discretionary consent is built into it. That's basically a permit. It's kind of a high level permit. Something like a building permit is not considered a discretionary consent. It's a ministerial consent. You can get into deep nuances and wormholes. I won't go down that, but for a private proposed action to go through this process, they need a fairly high level permit. And so there's always some agency out there, whether an agency is proposing an action or they're approving an action that a private entity is proposing, that's always in charge of the process. Our Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, well, we're in the center of this very complex network system, we don't make any decisions about any of these environmental review things going through the process. They all come to us. We have a role of, our role is really to encourage the public to participate. We publish the availability of these environmental documents as they're going through the process. And we can give a lot of advice to people, but we don't make any decision. We essentially, maybe similar to the neighborhood boards, do not have power. And we just try to help keep the process moving along. There are three main levels of review that if once a project is determined to need to go through the process, the core level is an environmental assessment. And that is prepared when the agency believes the action will not have a significant impact. This concept of significant impact is really significant, important. I'll speak to it a bit more later. But if something that triggers the process, but is not expected to have a significant impact, then it goes through the environmental assessment process. It's possible under some situations to get an exemption so that an environmental assessment does not have to be prepared. So an exemption or the environmental assessment, EA, are two of the ways. And the third is the big full-blown environmental impact statement. And that would be prepared when an agency determines that the action is likely to have a significant impact. Again, this notion of significance is pretty important. And the agency that is in charge of marshaling this project through the process makes a determination of significance using significance criteria, which I'll speak to in a little bit. Again, that's a role of an agency that is either proposing the action or will be approving some private party's action. They are essentially driving the bus on making all the important determinations. Our program, we publish the environmental notice. Some of you may be familiar with it. You can subscribe to it. It's a free thing. We put it out twice a month, and it lists the environmental review documents going through the process, the different stages of the process. And it's certainly intended to push this information out to the public so the public is aware of it and then can participate by commenting, reading and commenting on these documents as they feel it's appropriate. We also maintain an online library of all of the environmental assessments and environmental impact statements and various other documents that have been prepared since the program began in the 1970s. So this online library has thousands of documents. It's a good reference source. Certainly when new environmental assessments are being prepared, usually the preparers, and there's consultants usually behind it, they review previous documents to see if something is relevant. But it exists for the public to access and be able to read event documents as they're going through. Again, public review and comment is a key aspect of the process. And environmental assessments have one 30-day public comment period. It begins when the draft EA is published. With the more complex environmental impact statements have 2 comment periods. And again, all this stuff is noted in the issues of the environmental notice when the documents are getting processed. You can go to our website and subscribe to it if you care enough to learn about these things. When the public prepares a comment and submits it in a timely manner, then the entity that is proposing the action, they're legally obligated to prepare a response to your comment and address the issues that you brought up. And all of this is done in a public way so that it's available for everyone to read and review, and especially the decision makers, basically the agency or maybe the council making a decision they have a sense of what the public thinks about the action. So it's, if you have comments, especially that pertain to the merits of the project, this is an opportunity to get that before the decision makers. Big thing we've been dealing right now is complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's a new focus. It's caused us to completely reorganize our whole website. So now finding documents is more difficult than it used to be. And we encourage people just to reach out to our program through contact information I'll have at the end, so that if you're having problems finding a specific document that you believe exists, you can reach out to us. And so if there's questions, I don't know if the chair wants to wait through the end or just to ask at the time.
Wait till the end.
Yeah, okay, that'll be fine. So here are the various triggers for that an action would have to meet one or multiple for the project to have to go through this specific environmental review process. The first one I've highlighted a bit, the use of state or county lands or funds. That captures the vast majority of actions, but other things that would trigger the need to go through the process is if you're proposing something on conservation district land or in the shoreline area or in a historic site or in the Waikiki area. There's specific boundaries to most of these, in fact, to all of these. Some amendments to an existing county general plan. Some of these triggers get a little esoteric and aren't used very often. If someone is reclassifying land out of the conservation district, that has to go through this process. If you're constructing helicopter facilities, that got added in, interestingly. And then the last one is kind of a catch-all for some industrial facilities, power plants, landfills, oil refineries, things of that nature have to go through the process. They probably would hit a different trigger, but if they don't, they would be captured by this trigger. Again, the idea, and all of this is established by the legislature. They make these high-level decisions on what has to go through the process. Okay, we can move on. So this kind of suggests that didn't show up, it's kind of washed out, but there's all the actions that are subject to 343, including exempt, which might be in the thousands. And then the actions requiring environmental assessment, like in a year, there might be 100. And actions requiring the full-blown environmental impact statement, that may be half a dozen. So there's this hierarchy of levels of review, and only a few really have to go through the very heavy, intensive process. A lot of people think everything should go through the environmental impact statement process, but it's just, the system was never designed for that. And just, you know, everyone has to follow the law, and the law says only certain ones would have to go through the environmental review, the environmental impact statement process. I won't get into reading all of these words, again, a lot of words, but if you're really into the nuts and bolts of it, the definitions matter. And so, you know, who's an agency, who's an applicant, the difference between an approving agency and a proposing agency, an accepting authority. So there's a lot of detail and nuance, and our office is certainly there to help provide guidance. We're not legal authorities, and we have no authority to make specific decisions, so we give guidance onto what these terms, how they're often used. Very often I tell agency people when they have questions, I'll give you all this free advice, and you should check with your legal counsel. Every agency has some legal counsel, and the legal counsel would tell them, you know, make the legal decision about, is it this or is it that? I can move on. Again, more terms. The environment is defined very broadly. The intent of the process is to look at the environment in a very broad concept to include cultural things, historic things, certainly physical, birds and bugs and things of that nature, human use of the environment. So it's intended a broad perspective on it. And the notion of effect, there's ecological effects, but there's also aesthetic effects, social, health-related effects, and effects can be primary or secondary or cumulative. A lot of this gets into kind of nuanced language and terms, but it's important when it gets down to the details of preparing these reports, usually done by consultants that usually have a good sense of what all these terms mean. But they're constantly calling us up and looking for guidance, and that's a big role that our program has. And I say we, it's really royally, it's really office of one person. There's a secretary and there's me. So we're supposed to have 5 positions, but it's been 2 for the past while, and probably going to stay that. Okay, go on. Okay, here, these significance criteria, again, I won't read every single one, but there are these concepts that will the proposed project irrevocably commit a natural, cultural, or historic resource? So there's a lot of room for interpretation in whether, in applying these significant criteria, and basically for the agency to decide whether a impact will be a significant impact or not a significant impact. If any of these criteria are hit, and again, that's an agency determination, then the full-blown environmental impact statement would need to be prepared. So sometimes there's a lot of debate back and forth about what are the meaning of these words. And a lot of the analyses that are done in these environmental documents are really getting at the specifics and the details of these significance criteria. Again, this is all available on our website, and there's references at the end. So you can go on.
I think I remember hearing that only.
Hold on, remember, Sophia, let him finish.
Sorry, I think.
This is my last slide. So,
Okay.
I'll get to last. Yeah, so this is a flow chart. There's no way you can read, but it's intended to show that there is a detailed process with a lot of steps. It's not a necessarily an easy thing to do, although the parties that there's a whole industry of consultants that have learned kind of what this process means and how to get through it. And they are helping clients getting through the process. They know all the steps. We will certainly help provide guidance on it as necessary, but it's intended to show, if you're in the one on our website, it may be easier to read, not so washed out. There's 3 discrete processes from kind of a light treatment, the exemption, through the environmental assessment, which is more complex, to the environmental impact statement, which is very deep and intensive with a lot of steps along the way. And one of the big thing to take away is that public comment is a big part of it. And then the public is also enabled to legally challenge determinations at the end. The big black circles at the end are kind of endpoints. And any determination can be legally challenged, and they are. And that's how decisions can be overturned or rolled back, or judicial interpretations get added into the whole process. But so the public does have the ability to take an agency to court if they believe that a bad or wrong decision was made. Interestingly, an applicant, the one who's if it's a private party, they're not sued. It's the agency that gave the approval is the entity that is sued. And this is all according to how the statute, how the legislature came up with this process. Next slide. And here's just some information or website and a contact information. And I can scan the QR code for more information. So it's a very brief introduction. Could go on for hours about it, but the slide goes on for more and more, but that's a good place to stop right now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Eason. So we're going to open it up for questions and comments. First, Member Sophia, you were.
I had kind of two questions rolled into one here. At first, I just wondered, is it true that only one significance criteria of the ones you showed has to be met to mitigate for an EIS as opposed to the more limited EA?
Yes, if one or more significance criteria are hit, then it's deemed to that the proposed action is likely to have a significant impact, and thus an EIS is necessary. So they only need to hit one criteria.
And what, in your experience as a planner, could you say something about what the main differences you've seen in the way an EIS plays out as compared to an EA? What are the dimensions that are added?
Well, actually the rules have a lot of very prescribed, detailed steps of what has to be included in the EIS, while as in the EA, the lighter the environmental assessment, it's intended to be, in planning jargon, a desktop model as opposed to a lot of original research. So in an EIS, they're expected to go out and do archaeological studies, go out and do botanical studies, whereas an environmental assessment, the lighter version, they use pre-existing information. They gather it from other sources. They don't go out and do the detailed analyses. So an EIS will tend to be a much richer document and takes a lot more to prepare one.
Is there a difference in public participation between the two?
Yeah, for the environmental assessment, there's one 30-day comment period. And for the environmental impact statement, there's two. There's a 30-day, it's technically called a scoping comment period. After the very first document, the first iteration, there's an environmental impact statement preparation notice. It's kind of a light version, essentially saying this is what we're planning on doing, and we're going to be doing a full-blown environmental impact statement. And please tell us what you think we should be looking at. So there's a 30-day comment period for there. And within that 30-day comment period, there's also a required public meeting. And then a draft environmental impact statement is prepared. And when that is submitted to us for publication, there's a 45-day comment period that follows. So there's a 30-day and a 45-day comment period on the EISs.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Member Moylan?
Yes, a couple of questions. First, the assessments or impact statements, they also presumably include positive effects as well as negative ones, right?
Yes, certainly the notion of positive impacts is something that can be included in the reports, the documents. However, these notions of like these triggers and the significance criteria, it's only if proposed action is likely to have an adverse impact would it have to go through this process. If all the impacts were deemed to be beneficial and not adverse, then it technically wouldn't hit those significance criteria. So certainly when these things are written, they try to say all the good things about it. So the positive benefits to the project is usually woven in to the whole conversation. But the focus tends to be on likely adverse impact because that's the thing that most people are worried about.
Right. But presumably the agency or decision makers are supposed to include all the positive and negative in their decision.
In their decisions about certainly implementing the action, whether it gets approved, yeah, they would be thinking about the positive things too.
Now, you had said that this mechanism isn't a good way to oppose a project. I want to narrow down what you meant by that. Did you mean it's not an appropriate way? Do you mean it's not an effective way? I mean, in California, they have the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, which for some years has been debated because it's routinely abused by people who are opposed to projects. And the projects don't really have any environmental impact, but people are opposed to the project. They don't want it to happen. So they say, you know, page 29, paragraph 6 of the environmental impact report we think is deficient. And in those cases, if the court says, yeah, you should have written it differently, it goes back to the agency and they have to redo the environmental impact report. They still get to make their own decision, but it can, you know, cause projects to get much, much more expensive. And it's even gone up to the California Supreme Court. There's a case in LA that went up to the Supreme Court where they said, and by the way, the similar case in Sunnyvale was wrongly decided. So, you know, this is like a huge amount of litigation that goes on with people trying to stop projects by saying the real problem with it is environmental, when the real problem might be they just don't want it.
That similar concept certainly has been used here to use the environmental review process and try to, you know, press little buttons around, whereas just the process wasn't intended to be used that way, and yet it is used because it is a mechanism that's out there. And but just trying to push out that it's a disclosure process. It's not to say that a project is good or bad, just what are the facts. That's the intent of it.
All right, and I see, we'll go to Member Fukumoto, then to Laura Ruby. Member Fukumoto, please go ahead.
Mr. Eisen, thank you very much for your presentation. As someone who taught legal writing, I'm very interested in bureaucratic writing, and I believe that that's pretty much what you're doing right now. Yes. And the relationship between the public and the statutes, it's very important for you to translate to the public what the statute says. I have some specific questions. So are your slides on the website right now? Are the slides that we saw available on the website, or are they different?
I actually have not uploaded this one yet, but I can and will upload it.
Or even better, could you send us electronic versions of your presentation today? Would that be possible?
Yes, I certainly can send a PDF of it to the chair.
Okay.
If that's the appropriate, or if there's a different mechanism.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And Laura Ruby online.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question regarding a federal statute. You probably know the number or name of whatever. That is, when a government agency takes away park land for using another purpose for it, but I believe that they have to have the same comparable acreage that is placed somewhere in the nearby community with full funding for that park area. In other words, it's a park replacement is what's going on. And is that, I believe that's the case. And can you fill us in a little bit on that?
Sorry. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on federal law at all. I encounter it from time to time. There's big differences between federal law and Hawaii's law. The two processes are, these environmental review processes are modeled after, or the Hawaii's is modeled after the state, but there's definitely differences, and a lot of the nuance of the federal system, which actually where every agency has their own separate rules. And so depending which federal agency you're dealing with, they could have a completely different way of implementing the process. Whereas in the state system, there's one set of rules that all agencies use the same set. So that's the process that I'm familiar with. I really can't speak to individual federal
Well,
actions or laws.
if I could continue, if this land is taken away and nothing is done to replace it for the taxpayers, then there is some lacking of an agency to take care of that, providing new land for a park area. And it's not been disclosed. So an EA or even an EIS should disclose where that land is being taken from and where it is, all of that acreage is to be replaced. Am I right on that? It would, so it can't be just an MOA. An MOA is like postage stamps, they're
Yeah,
really not solutions to it.
if you're talking about something based in a federal law or federal agency, I really have nothing to speak to that. The state is
Well,
entirely
it'll be
different
state
jurisdiction.
also. Yeah, it'll be state also. So I'm thinking that we're going to be at a loss for a lot of parkland at various places, if that isn't the case. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Laura. And I don't see any more raised hands. Sorry, we're going to move on for time. But was there someone in back? Oh, you have to come to the microphone so we can hear you, or someone can hand you a microphone if they have one. And this will be the last question or comment. After this, we're gonna.
So, do you review federal, say supposing that the Army Corps of Engineers comes up with a plan to help us with the flooding of the Mānoa stream, you would review that plan for an environmental impact statement, is that correct?
Our agency does not do that. Some other agency presumably would. I believe the case that a lot of people are familiar with, the state's Department of Land and Natural Resource, is the agency that reviewed and made determinations on the environmental impact statement.
So we have a severe problem here with the flooding of the Mānoa stream, and we've had it for 23 years. This last flood was the worst I have ever seen in all my years here. And something needs to be done about that, and very quickly. And I know there have been plans before, like in 2004, when the last flooding incident occurred, causing $98 million worth of damage and destroying the library at the University of Hawaii. This is going to continue. It's not going to stop. Somebody needs to get control over this and needs to stop the flooding on all these Hawaiian Islands. This flooding is not unique to Hawaii. It's all over the world. Flooding
Chair,
occurs.
the question is not about the topic being
She's
discussed.
still. You go for 30 more seconds, then I'm going to call time. 30 more seconds.
Okay, so if a review is necessary, it should take place, but you have to also consider the other side of the coin, that the flooding is causing serious financial damage and to all of the Hawaiian Islands. People's cars are destroyed. So take that into consideration, that something needs to be done, and very quickly, because this is not going to stop.
All right, and we are perfectly at time. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Eisen, for coming in and giving this presentation, for fielding all of our questions, and let's see you again some other time.
Okay, thank you. And again, feel free to reach out to us with specific questions about the process.
All right, thanks. So going through the rest of the agenda now, we have about an hour left. City monthly reports, Board of Water Supply, Dominic Diaz. Is Dominic Diaz here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I will make it really quick and try and get this back on schedule. No main breaks to report for last month. No active BWS construction in the valley. Just a quick general reminder, Every year, the Board of Water Supply conducts thousands of water sampling tests on sources and the distribution system to ensure that we are in compliance with all federal and state safe drinking water laws. You should be receiving your water quality report by July 1st. We issue water quality reports twice a year, one in July, one in December, but you can always go to our website, boardofwatersupply.com/WQR, and you can put in your address there and you can get a full water quality report of all the sources that serve your area. And you can also just go to our webpage, boardofwatersupply.com, go into the search bar and type water quality report, and it'll direct you to that same page. And at any given time, you can look up the most recent water quality report. It includes a full chemical analysis, and they've started adding explanations of what all the different constituents in the water are. And at this time, if there are any questions on behalf of the Board of Water Supply, I'd be happy to take those.
All right, any questions or comments quickly for Board of Water Supply? Seeing no one in person, anyone online? All right, thanks, Dominic. We'll see you again, not in July because it's a recess. We'll see you again in August.
Great, thank you.
Going now to item B on city monthly reports. Mayor Rick Belangiotti's representative, Deputy Director Gavin Thornton.
Good evening, everybody. Gavin Thornton here on behalf of the mayor's office. I have just one announcement and then a number of follow-up items from questions from last time. First announcement is the Mayor's Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resilience has released a draft of the first ever Oahu Food Systems Plan, a strategic implementation-focused action plan that defines the city's role in Oahu's food system over the next 5 years. It outlines over 70 actions the city can take to improve how food is produced, distributed, accessed, and disposed of while supporting the health of our community's economy and the environment. They're looking for feedback on the plan. Share your mana'o by June 30th, 2026. To review the draft plan, visit www.resilientoahu.org/food systems plan, all one word. Last month, there were a number of items that we were awaiting response from Department of Facilities Management. Unfortunately, I was expecting responses by today, but I don't have any. These are all related to the Kona Low follow-up. I do know that Board Member Fox has a meeting scheduled with the Director of DFM. Hopefully some of those questions will be resolved then. And then since I didn't get answers today, I'll make sure to follow up directly. And then I have 3 other follow-up question items. Last month, I came back with a response regarding the Alawai Bridge project. The initial question was, why is the Department of Transportation Services looking for a contractor for the Alawai project despite not having a finding of no significant impact? The community member that asked that question and a board member clarified that the question is not only why DTS issued a request for proposals before a finding of no significant impact, but why is the city considering the Alawai Bridge at all, and what data supports placing the bridge there? Additionally, a resident objected to DTS's statement that alternative bridge configurations were sought by the community. Residents stated that the community did not seek a bridge at all and that the process had not reflected a genuine community request in support of the project. The response is lengthy, so let me just read that to you. The request for qualifications was issued prior to completion of the NEPA process in order to provide the maximum practical time span for potential contractors to develop and evaluate alternative bridge configurations discussed during public outreach and community engagement activities. Federal law allows certain design build procurement activities to occur before completion of the NEPA process. There have been multiple surveys and opportunities for community involvement, which included a no-build alternative. An LOI alternatives analysis was conducted in 2018 and 2019 to identify, develop, and evaluate whether and how to provide additional access over the LOI Canal, an enhanced connection between the Waikiki, Ala Moana, and Macaulay Mo'ili'ili neighborhoods. Alternatives included a new bridge, enhancements to one of the existing bridges crossing the canal, or other crossing types, for example, an aerial tram, and a no-build alternative. A new bridge in the vicinity of University Avenue was identified as the preferred alternative. As summarized in the executive summary of the alternatives analysis report, outreach efforts included 3 public open houses, 304 attendees, 180 live polling responses, 900 in-person surveys of travelers around the canal, and 100 responses to an online survey. At public charrettes held on November 20th and 24th, 2024, participants reviewed 19 city-provided bridge concepts, in addition to the current cable-stayed concept. Feedback reflected a range of perspectives, including opposition to a bridge crossing, as well as positive feedback on various alternatives. In addition, the public provided their own designs at these charrettes. The suggestion to hold charrettes themselves came from the community. And they refer for more information. It's available on the project website, honolulu.gov/DTS/ALA-PONO. That's ALA-PONO. There was another question about professional spray paint markings along Lowry Avenue. And DTS received this question. They weren't able to identify any projects of theirs in that area. Unfortunately, I don't know whether there's another department that might have been responsible for those markings. There was also a question about the concern about the pedestrian signals at University Avenue and Miley Way. And DTS said that they would investigate and ensure that the signal is working properly. And then finally, happy to report the Mānoa District Pool was reopened on May 18th, 2026. That is everything. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thornton. Do we have any quick questions or comments for Mr. Thornton in person, online, anyone? Oh, Marcifio.
Yes, I have a question that I was going to try to direct to the Department of Parks, I guess, and Recreation, but I already talked to Urban Forestry about it, and they said they don't know anything. What my question is there some bounding of 2 trees along the walkway, between the walkway and Manoa Stream at the Mānoa District Park on the Kahaloa side? And then on this, in the same area, there are flags, pink flags, 2 of them on the ancient rock wall on the east side of Manoa Stream. And I'm trying to find out why the trees are bounded and why the rock wall is flagged. If you can help with that, I'd really appreciate it, because I put a request into 311 after I was told that Urban Forestry didn't know anything, and I haven't gotten any response.
Okay, I'd be happy to ask. I've seen the banding's not for the nesting, is it? Or do you know?
No, they're like pinkish orange bands. One is on a hala tree and the other is on some other type of tree that's maybe like 20 yards away along the walkway. And then the pink flags are across the stream on the stone wall.
Okay, I'd be happy to relay that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Armstrong, and then we're gonna move on. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mahalo, Gavin. Appreciate your being here. My question relates to the Department of Emergency Management within the city and county, and whether or not an after-action report has been made available in response to the recent flooding on Oahu, and in addition, an after-action report for last summer's tsunami traffic snarl as it relates to the Waikiki area. Mahalo.
Sure. I'm not aware of one. I'd be happy to ask. I think there was actually, that was one of the questions we're waiting for a response from DFM on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thornton. We're going to move forward now. We'll see you in August after the recess. Going on item C, City Councilmember Scott Nishimoto. Online.
Hi, Keith Williams here, Office of Councilmember Nishimoto. Aloha, Chair Nagachi, members of the board. Just a couple of announcements. The council passed the city's budget and CIP budget today in the council meeting. Just wanted to highlight a couple of things that are specific to the district. We were able to get an $1.4 million for a comprehensive watershed debris management and flood risk reduction strategy, and that was matching state funds into the CIP budget. And I previously reported that we made a request for sidewalks in the Mānoa area, but due to the board's, I guess, lack of consensus on the matter, we drew back our CIP request for that, so that is no longer in the budget. So just updating on that, and happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Any questions or comments for councilman or staff? Anyone online? All right, seeing in here, Moylan.
Yes, did I understand you to say that had this board submitted the resolution that at first was passed and then rescinded, that it would have been budgeted, that it was put in the budget?
We made a request to put it in the budget, but then withdrew that request.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing, hearing none. Thank you. We'll see you again in August after the recess. All right, going on to item A, state monthly report, starting with Senator Carol Fukunaga. Is Senator Fukunaga here?
Hector Venegas from Office of Senator Fukunaga. I have passed out a handout that contains a newsletter. It is about, has information about the state budget funds for storm repairs and strengthening of the public facilities, including Mānoa. Under the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, there is funds to retrofit public buildings and with hurricane protective measures statewide. There is funds for siren maintenance and modernization statewide. For the Aloha watershed flood, there is Mānoa stream watershed risk reduction and debris management monies. Also, there is Aloha watershed debris management. For the Hawaii Department of Transportation, there is monies for Hawaii traffic operational improvements statewide. Also in the handout, I have information about FEMA and their assistance to the residents and businesses who got impacted by the Kona law. The deadline for this is June the 14th. And there is instructions how to apply to FEMA. But the most important news that I have to give you is that on Wednesday, June 17, here at the Noelani Elementary Cafeteria from 6 to 7:30, Senator Carol Fukunaga, Representative Andre Takuyo Garrett, Councilmember Scott Nishimoto, they are sponsoring a community forum to learn from our current law flooding and storm experiences. They will feature Department Transportation Director Ed Snaffen, and from HAEMA, Administrator Jim Barrows, from the Honolulu Department of Emergency Management, Director Randall Collins, from the Department of Facility Maintenance, Director Jane Albano, and company Honunu. Because of what has happened to us in the last March, a lot of questions have been asked about this town hall meeting. And this is the time for the audience and whoever's attending, ask their questions about that they might have for us. Okay, that's my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Venegas. Do we have any questions or comments for Senator Fukunaga's staff? All right, thank you. We'll, oh, sorry, Brett, please go ahead.
My question had to do with the past legislature session. And there was a Senate Bill 2544, which my understanding is Senator Fukunaga, as well as Representative Garrett, voted for. And this bill was called the Hawaii Builds Pilot Program. It was a 5-year program designed to expedite approval of affordable housing projects. But I guess my concern reading the text of the bill, which got, again, voted on and approved by the legislature, should be before the governor to review. And if he signs it, it would go into law. My concern with it was that it seems to take away the county's role in approving any one of these pilot projects for this 5-year life of the thing. Anything that would be approved by, and I think it's HHFBC has a committee that would approve projects by county, but approved projects wouldn't be able to be reviewed by the city and county. So that was my concern.
I do.
Yeah.
I do like to have your concern. Will
Yeah.
you please do me a favor?
Yeah. No, but here's my question.
No.
I had a specific question
Yes.
for, again, for the legislators that represent Manoa who voted for it. What, I was wondering, why did you vote for it? Because it seems to increase the
sir.
threat of,
Sir,
of projects
let me
like
say this
Manoa
to
Banyan
you.
Court.
Sir.
Yeah.
I do not, at this point,
Yeah.
don't remember the law. But
Yeah.
You have brought to my attention.
Yeah.
Can you put in writing, email me what the question is, so I can do some research and give you a report in the next meeting?
Sure.
Can you do that?
Sure. And I'll probably be at this meeting later this
That'd be
month.
great.
too, so
That'd be great.
I just wanted to get some
I
clarification.
understand, sir.
Yeah.
But I do know certain things.
Yeah.
I'm not very knowledgeable on what you're talking about. I need to look it up. I don't remember the details of each legislative measure.
Mhm.
My brain is limited,
No,
but I would love to help you. And I would like to give you the answer. So if you can give me in writing, because memory falters. Writing, you
Can
can
do.
remember.
Can do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hector. We'll see you again, hopefully in August after the recess. So as we're transitioning from Senator Carol Fukunaga to Representative Andrew Chikuyi Garrett, I will just note that yesterday was a filing deadline for candidates, and both our senator and representative are unopposed. So congratulating both of them for being reelected without opposition.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Representative Garrett, great to be here again. You have my newsletter. This was supposed to hit mailboxes a couple of weeks ago, shortly after we adjourned on May 8th, but unfortunately the printer went down in the house print shop. So this was just dropped off with the post office yesterday. So you should get it in your mailboxes tomorrow or the day after. But typical format includes just a quick recap of what we accomplished this past session, some highlights of bills that I think would be of interest to you folks. And then as Hector mentioned, the town hall we're going to have in this venue in 2 weeks. As part of it is a postmortem in terms of what happened with the Kona low flooding back in March, as well as looking forward. They are expecting this to be a heavier hurricane season with El Nino patterns. So just making sure the community is prepared as much as possible. And then again, as part of that postmortem, trying to figure out if there's anything we can do to prepare a more resilient community. I think a lot of us are familiar with the Alawai Watershed Project that the U.S. Army Corps had been proposing over the past, 15, 20 years after the Hamilton Library flooding and whatnot. I think a lot of engineering studies have been done. I know there was a constituent here who previously talked about, how it's completely unacceptable for this to happen again. Of course, we all agree with that sentiment. A lot of engineering studies have been done, and it's just, I think, a matter of whether the community is willing to accept some of the solutions that they had proposed. You may recall that there were detention basins that were suggested at the Manoa Valley District Park, right by the dog park, the informal dog park area. I know that I think this board took a position against that. I had some concerns too because it would have required removing some of the baseball fields, and we know this is one of the most heavily used recreational facilities out there. But if we do have, more likely floods on the horizon, detention basin, as unpopular as it may be, maybe something we need to consider, whether it's a full basin or just building a berm along some of the, I guess, the tributaries that kind of feed into Mānoa Stream. I did some walkthroughs after that March flooding, and the homes are along Lowry Avenue. Basically, the water from Mānoa Stream, right where that dog park is, the channel was not wide enough for the water to flow down the natural path. So it diverted to the right and just, the floods just came through the backyards of all these homes. So, if there's a berm built up there, that might provide some protection. But as Heath from Councilmember Nishimoto's office suggested or mentioned, the state did pass a line item in the budget for 1.4 million for a Manoa Stream debris management study. It was conditioned on the county coming up with a $1.4 million match. Heath just shared that has been funded through the county. So we're looking at nearly a $3 million study to try to look at the situation again. It's going to take time, obviously, through procurement, getting the right engineers and consultants. But I will note there has been quite a bit of work done in years past. And it's just a matter of, I think, whether the community is willing to accept some of these solutions on that. So I'll just stop there and see if there are any questions or comments this month. Thank you, Chair.
All right, any questions or comments for the representative in person? I don't see anyone online. Anyone? Member Koff, please go ahead.
Oh, it's a comment and a suggestion. I've thought for a long time that it would be a very nice thing to have our young people or fit people to go into the valley and clean up the streams and so on, and that we could pay them like a conservation corps, something. The kids are coming up with they're in summer holiday, they've got some time. So, or any time, to just make this a pay priority, to give people some work. Okay, what do you think?
No, thank you for the suggestion. I mean, that might help on the surface, but I think there are deeper structural concerns when it comes to that. As part of that kind of walkthrough after the March flooding, we visited some of the homes that were impacted, and there were like logs that were clearly cut by neighbors further upstream that were just dumping it into the stream. So there's going to have to be an educational component so people recognize the impact of their actions. I mean, these were like clean cut logs. These weren't naturally, logs that just were branches that broke off of trees as a result of the storm. So we need to educate people on the impacts of this. And, the challenge here is we have just kind of this hodgepodge system in terms of jurisdiction. I think you folks know, but a lot of landowners aren't aware that they're personally responsible for maintaining that section of the stream that abuts their property. Well, actually, the property line goes up to the halfway point of the stream itself. But when you can't compel your neighbors to be good stewards and you're impacted further downstream, this is, kind of why we have this situation. So we're looking at various solutions. And in the House, we're setting up an interim working group to look at these kind of stewardship issues. My very first year getting into office in 2023, I introduced a bill that would have basically made DLNR in charge of all waterways maintenance. They obviously came out in opposition, citing resources and whatnot. But if there's a governance structure where we can maybe have one agency fully responsible, there might be some kind of easements or charges that go along with that. But we need to kind of pull back, and rather than looking at just picking up twigs and branches out of the stream, try to figure out the governance piece. And again, on the engineering side, there have been a lot of studies that have been done, whether it's flood walls along certain parts of the stream, right around the bend of Woodlawn bridge where the UH faculty housing is. That area jumps all the time. The water jumps that area all the time as well. But I appreciate the suggestion because clearly we need to be proactive about this. Thank you, Member Koff.
All right, so calling the order that I saw people in, we're going to enforce time here because we have 4 people who want to speak. We'll go to Watson, then Armstrong, then Chong, then Bosel, and then we're going to move on. So Member Watson, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hey, Andrew. You know, for a long time, we've talked about regular stream maintenance or dredging, and Ed Sniffen, at least on the news one time, talked about dredging Manoa streams and some other streams, even for property that they don't own, right? Just to get it out, to clean it out from what you're saying about logs floating down or everything. So, you know, I think the city and the state has yet to try to maintain the streams, dredge the streams, and like in Manoa Valley, make it, and this is where the legislature would come in, illegal to have albizia trees, because that's what falls in and clogs up. So that's what clogged up Woodlawn Bridge when UH was flooded, and we've known that for a long time, and never has the city or the state done anything about just stream maintenance, dredging, and getting rid of albizia trees. It may be just that simple. It might be just that simple. So even though maybe you don't need berms and retaining walls, you just need to keep the water moving, and you need to clear out the sediment, and you need to not allow albizia trees to be in the Alawai watershed. Maybe it's just that simple.
Member Watson, time.
That's what I'm thinking. At least it's
Thank you,
worth a try, and it's something we can do between the city and the state. It's not like we need $1 billion for the Army Corps, right? And the Army Corps on both of their
Sorry, just
plans
speaking for time.
at the end of the day said
Member
that
Watson,
they wouldn't
can you
work.
let
but
the
anyway.
representative answer the question? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you, Member Watson. I mean, obviously your son is an amazing work when it comes to albizia removal from the stream. Want to give a shout out to Malama Manoa and Scott Snyder in particular, because I think on June 13th, we're going to do our annual sweep again about albizia seedlings from a good chunk of Mānoa stream. You know, it's easier to catch when it's 2 inches tall versus these trees that grow 10, 15 feet a year. A lot of it, you know, no one's intentionally planting albizia in their backyard or in the stream. A lot of it is just, you know, bird droppings and other things that cause these trees to sprout up wherever. And, you know, I do want to defend the city. I mean, we've been talking to the Department of Facilities Maintenance about clearing the area under the Woodlawn Bridge where the sediment does build up, because I know the mouth under that bridge is not adequate. So when they knew this storm was coming, they tried to get out there. My understanding was their equipment was offline for quite some time. But you know, I know there's a desire there to try to be more proactive. And I can, you know, continue to push on my part from the state. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we do need the state and city to work together and come up with a long-term maintenance strategy for the stream.
And I'm sorry to cut people off, but we are running up on time. So Member Armstrong, please go ahead.
Mahalo, Chair, and thank you, Representative Garrett. I'll be very brief. 2 questions. First is, does the State House foresee the need for a special session, given that we as a board will not be seeing you again until August? And 2, without a governor's representative that I'm aware of here, is there any word on anything from the governor's office that might be pertinent to your interests as our state representative? Mahalo.
Yep. Thank you, Member Armstrong. Good to see you again. Welcome back to the board. In terms of a special session, I know the solar industry has been pushing for one regarding the tax bill SB 3125 that we passed to try to salvage the tax credits that we passed a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, we needed pay-fors to save those tax credits, and the solar tax credit, as popular as it's been, was one of those tax credits that was identified by the money chairs in terms of sunsetting it over time. My understanding, though, is that the governor has come up with a solution through his Department of Taxation in terms of how they're going to interpret this, because it was never the intent of the legislature to have that tax credit rollback apply retroactively. I mean, projects that were, you know, approved with the understanding that they would receive these credits should be allowed to proceed. because these, programs or these kind of cuts always happen prospectively. But my understanding is Doe tax and the governor will issue some ruling that should alleviate the solar industry's concerns. Outside of that, I don't think there's any other bill that would require a special session. Just in terms of timeline, the governor has to notify the legislature by the end of this month, so June 30th, of any bills he intends to veto. And the final veto deadline itself is July 15th. So we'll just have to wait and see what ends up on his list and what he ultimately decides to veto. If there's something really important, we may come back in special session the day after to override those, but it's hard to say at this point. Thank you, Member Armstrong, for the question.
And Member Chong?
The area that you have to look at is on the stream, the Mānoa stream from Laurie Avenue, and then over here. It makes a 90-degree turn. Water does not know how to turn 90 degrees. And over here at Long's, it makes another 90 degrees. That's all you need to know. You have to have somehow a barrier so then the water doesn't go over the 90-degree turn. It just doesn't know how. That's why it went down Woodlawn, is because it couldn't make that 90-degree turn. That's the problem.
Yep, and I believe the Army Corps of Engineers pointed that out, and that's why they suggested some flood walls in those particular points you just referenced. Thank you, Member Chong.
And Member Watts, Member Bosel?
I just wanted to add, and building off of that comment about 90-degree turns, really streams don't historically follow exact perfect paths. And one of the big solutions that nobody wants to hear would be to reclaim larger areas around all these streams to have natural space for, highs and lows, and more, sort of planted spaces around the stream area, wetland space. That's what used to be in all these places before we built right up to our stream beds. But they're separately, so that's a little depressing because no one will want to, give up their house that's right along the stream. But something that is within all of our control, and so this is just a comment generally to the public, anybody who's listening and who's here and who didn't hear me mention this last time, is get rid of as much impermeable surface on your own property as you possibly can, and that will help your neighbors further down the valley. You won't know exactly who it's helping, but plant things that have deep roots and have area, don't let your gutters go right into the street. Don't have all of your driveway or, keep paving over your yard and then have everything go out to the street. The more we tax the stormwater system, that, all contributes to flooding. So, thank you.
Very well said.
All right, thanks, Member Bosel. Media Representative, we'll see you again in August after the recess.
See you folks then. Thank you.
All right, item C on state reports is Elmer Kai's report, but he's on vacation. So we're going to skip over that. Governor's Representative Lisa Goshi.
Wait, excuse me.
You're
Chairman?
not recognized. We're proceeding to Governor Josh Green's Representative Lisa Goshi.
It's for Elmer's report. Just I had to put a couple questions in his report that he gave us.
Mute her. You're not
Okay.
recognized.
Okay.
Governor Josh Green's Representative Lisa Goshi.
Hi, everyone. So on May 21st, Governor Josh Green joined officials from the National Weather Service and the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency and county emergency management leaders to present the 2026 hurricane weather outlook and to deliver a clear message to residents across the islands to prepare now before a storm comes. Officials encouraged all residents to sign up for their county emergency alerts before hurricane season is in full swing. So for more information, we encourage people to go to weather.gov and ready.hawaii.gov. And the governor's newsletter is available at governor.hawaii.gov. And other than that, happy to take any questions.
Okay, one or two very quick questions for the governor's rep before you need to move on. Any very quick questions for the governor's rep? Anyone online? Okay, great. Thank you. Lisa Goshi, we'll see you again in August after the recess. All right, going on to community updates. First of all, item A in community updates flooding Manoa and on Oahu. So per Garrett's newsletter, there will be a town hall, as was mentioned earlier. There will be a town hall on emergency preparedness on Wednesday, June 17, 2026, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at Noelani Elementary School. I plan to be there, and I don't think I'm going to be speaking, but I will be taking notes, and I'll report back if I'm able to make it. Any other things that people wanted to say on the topic of flooding in Manoa and on Oahu? Going once, going twice, anyone online? Okay, great. We're going to move on then. Manoa Banning Court, any updates on Manoa Banning Court? I do not have anything. Does anyone else have anything? Seeing and hearing no raised hands, we're moving forward to Aria Lane. I do not have any updates on Aria Lane. Does anyone else have updates on Aria Lane? Seeing and hearing none, we're moving forward to item D, all flood mitigation. As Member Fukumoto, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The topic has already been discussed this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Member Fukumoto. Next, UH EVA property feasibility study. So apologies, I have to pull up my phone to read this because it was sent to me over email just earlier today. And so because Elmer Kai was out today, I believe he's on vacation, he sent me an email with his updates. I'm not going to read the full email because it's pretty long, but I'm going to read 2 items because they relate to the UH EVA property feasibility study. And this is read directly from the email that Elmer sent me. Manoa EVA parcel 2320 Dole Street. Demolition of the vacant PBS Hawaii building has been completed with site work ongoing and expected to wrap up by summer of 2026. A feasibility study for redevelopment of this 15.43 acre parcel is underway with background studies and preliminary planning in progress. UH is also in active negotiations with the University Lab School, ULS, on a facilities use and occupancy agreement. In a separate paragraph, University Lab School, or ULS. A separate presentation to the BOR detailed the ULS's use of approximately 64,297 gross square feet of UH facilities. UH and ULS have been meeting weekly since January 7th, 2026 to negotiate a formal facilities use and occupancy agreement. Key proposed terms include a 3-year agreement through June 30th, 2029. So that's what Elmer sent me. He's not here, so we can't ask him questions specifically, but it does look like they're discussing a 3-year-long potential usage agreement. Any other updates that anyone wants to share regarding University Lab School or the UH EVA property feasibility study? Laura, please go ahead. You're muted.
Trying to comment earlier. I read it also, and there's a lot of suspicious things in there about people doing planning without really involving the rest of the community in this. And I know that you folks in Manoa had real grave concerns over things. Also, there's a false amount of how much is available.
Laura, I'm going to cut you off because you're answering the turn. So as I said earlier, we're going to enforce the rules of disrespect. You're not going to call people lying or whatever you were saying about them in a public meeting.
No, I'm not. I'm saying
inappropriate.
the difference, you can look at the difference between 15 acres and the acreage, in the square footage acreage of the University Lab School, how small that is compared to how large the whole of the College of Ed property is. That's the thing that you want to identify. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or updates regarding the UH EVA property feasibility study? Going once, going twice. I don't see any other raised hands. Okay, great. We're going to move on then. So this is, we're going back to board business. It's item B, Proactive Solutions Committee updates. Before I turn it over to Member Moylan, I need to note something procedural that happened. There was a meeting for the committee that was scheduled for May 20th, 2026. We actually had the meeting, but after the meeting, there was the complaint filed against the committee for defective notice because though notice of the meeting was emailed out and was sent via snail mail, notice was not posted to the NCA website with a week in advance. So because of that, there was a meeting on May 20, 2026. There were action items that were discussed, but because there was defective notice, apparently the remedy for this is we need to pretend as if the meeting never happened. We can't discuss or act on any of the action items for that retroactively canceled meeting. So other than that, Member Moylan, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think your description earlier in the meeting and just now and in the agenda is quite complete.
Okay. I just want to note, I said earlier that I wasn't interested in the Proactive Solutions Committee being renewed for another year because of how bad things have gotten with some of the topics there among some of the members, but I just want to make it clear for the chair and for other members of the committee, other than myself, that, if they have ideas, they can still put it in writing in resolutions and bring it before the board. It's just, if we don't have a committee next officer term, then the deliberations are going to be in front of the entire board rather than being deliberations in a meeting or in a committee meeting. Okay, any other comments on the Proactive Solutions Committee before we move on? Okay, we're moving on then. So this is with Tom Heinrich, who's in the audience. Item C, status of Senate Bill 2397 SD1 HD1 CD1 2026. This was the one that was relating to neighborhood boards to basically change our quorum requirement. So Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Tom Heinrich in my individual capacity. I urge all of you to take a look on the legislature's website, which is capital, spelled with an O, capital.hawaii.gov, and just punch in on the search bar SB 2397. That's all you need. Anyway, my appreciation to Member Moylan and to Senator Fukunaga for actually putting in the bill. The net result, unfortunately, in my opinion, is that the final version in the conference draft that is now pending before the governor is that the bill accomplishes nothing different than what I talked to you about a couple of weeks ago because of other research that I've done since. And that is the bill as introduced by Senator Fukunaga, in my opinion, was perfect. It would have lowered in those instances when there are vacancies on a board, it would have lowered the determination of quorum. And then secondly, and I think even more to the point of Member Moylan's concerns, was that once a quorum is established, especially for voting purposes, then you revert to Robert's Rules of Order so that a majority of the members present is what you would then need to actually pass a motion, adopt a resolution, whatever. All of you have endured those instances in which we are all confused that, wait a minute, we have 8 votes and only 1 member is opposed. You don't have the magic 9, right? So the proposal would have addressed that. The net result, however, is that the Roberts Rules element was taken out by the conference committee. No discussion or statements publicly made by the committee on that. And finally, then, in my view, there is a fatal flaw in the language as presently in the bill, in that it allows for the reduction of quorum for discussions leading up to voting. But what is not included is the actual act of voting. Net result, no change. The other thing is that elsewhere in Chapter 92 is specific allowance to neighborhood boards to, in fact, discuss things, collect information, and everything else in the absence of a quorum. And that's, in fact, what Senate Bill 2397 basically allows now without having a quorum. But you still have to have a majority of all members to which the board is entitled at time of voting. So when I look at that, ultimately, it does nothing. I still need to finish my own personal testimony. My advice to the governor at this is, please veto. We will start clean again in January with a new legislature in order to address this, because speaking individually, the executive secretary of the Neighborhood Commission Office submitted, I guess, to the chairs, a position in opposition to the proposal. It was not submitted as testimony, so there's nothing on the website demonstrating that testimony. However, the executive secretary's position was contrary to the majority of the members of the Neighborhood Commission in their own discussion. So we have aggravation that way. So please take a look at Senate Bill 2397. I think the effort is going to have to be completely redone come or getting ready for January, and we'll take it from there. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Any questions or comments for Tom Heinrich? Seeing and hearing none in person. Anyone online?
Yeah, let's try again, Chris.
Oh. Okay. Thank you, Tom Heinrich. We'll see you again hopefully in August. Going out to approval of the Wednesday, May 6, 2026 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the May 6 meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion for approval and we can talk about corrections after. Is there a second to the motion for approval? Hold
I'll
on,
second
hold on.
it.
Okay, so it was made by Koff, second by Watson. Is the motion to approve? And Member Moylan first, you can explain your correction, and then the gentleman in the back can come to the mic and explain his correction.
On page 5 of 8, under the discussion about rescinding the motion, item 1 correctly points out something Member Fukumoto said. Item 2 says, Chair Nagaji acknowledged Moylan's procedural point. I don't want to take credit for anyone else's work. I think it should say Fukumoto's procedural point.
And do we need an amendment for that?
Page 5 of 8,
I-
about 2/3 down the page.
I see. I'm just trying to clarify if we need to make a motion or if Anson can just do that as a correction. So I'll point out to you while he's speaking, but you can go ahead and speak while I'm pointing out to him.
Aloha, ahi kako. Yeah, just I apologize for being out of order because I didn't know the proper, thing here about accepting the minutes for last month. But no big deal. They have me listed as my last name Quincy on guest. That's my middle name. My last name is Adams. And then again, when I mentioned about the Mānoa stream maintenance and my concern about dredging and native species concerns, they have me as Quincy again. Mahalo nui loa.
All right. So, yeah, page 8. Item 7. Sorry, sir. And what was your name that you wanted us to add or correct it to? Adams. Quincy Adams. Okay. So member it was to change it on page 5, page 5, so that on the bottom half of the page, page 5 of 8, bottom half of the page, item 2, clear certification. It currently says chair acknowledged Moylan's procedural point. Change it to chair acknowledged member Fukumoto's procedural point. And member Koff, are all these corrections accepted as a friendly amendment to your motion to adopt the amendments or adopt the minutes?
Fine.
Okay, great. So they're being considered friendly amendments, and there's also a community member came in and gave me and Anson a bunch of spelling corrections and inserting last name corrections. So we can also do that, right? We'll do that as a non-substantive corrections. Okay, so the motion is to pass the minutes with various non-substantive amendments to fix spellings and insert last names and correct titles, as well as with the friendly amendments to specify Fukumoto rather than Moylan on the bottom of page 5, as well as to properly name resident Quincy Adams rather than just calling Quincy on page 8. Any objection to passage of the minutes with those amendments? Oh, I see a raised hand from Dale Armstrong.
Chair
Member Armstrong?
Nagaji, mahalo. In addition, there is also on page 3, the misidentification of resident Brett Kurashige as resident Brett. And on page 8, the identification of Linda LeGrand as resident Linda. Those last names should also be properly substituted for the first name, and all instances of Lowry Avenue appear to be misspelled as the same without the E. The correct spelling is R-E-Y, not R-Y.
Here. Okay, so I found it. I'm circling the stuff for Anson to look at. So member Koff, I assume it's okay that we can have all that as a friendly amendment as well?
Yes.
Okay, so with all with all those friendly amendments, the motion on the table is to adopt the minutes from last meeting. Do we have any objections? If so, raise your hand or shout it out. Seeing and hearing none in person, any objections online? Seeing and hearing none, okay. Passes by acclamation with all those amendments that I have for Anson's review. Okay, going to now community concerns. For other concerns not listed on the meeting agenda, I have a couple of things, but I'll turn it over to other people. We do have about 9 minutes left. Are there any community concerns people want to bring up? Laura Ruby, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like the board to consider a resolution for the next meeting, and that is an inexpensive, quickly realized conveyance across the Alawai Canal. That is a ferry or ferries. This is very much in the operating like a bus system, and it would not. I'm going to have you think about first. You people in Manoa like your view planes. The view planes look across the ocean, Diamond Head, and everywhere else. And when you have something that interrupts it, you get upset, like the Wahahila power lines and things like that. This is a very low form, not unlike anything that would be a bus that would go through your neighborhood. So I'd like you to think about that. It's for a conveyance for pedestrians and bicyclists, not for mopeds or anything that would clog up the moped system. I won't go on further with it, but it would work just like one operator, and the ADA ramps would come down,
All right, I'm
making
giving
it
you for
very
time.
easy. That would be fine. I would hope that I will have it.
Remember,
Would
sorry,
like to have it presented.
Laura, you're cut off for time.
Explain it more.
Okay, so before I open up to anyone else saying anything, I should just disclose to everyone, I did have some brief email communication with Laura about a week ago. She sent me that resolution for us to basically take a position endorsing the ferry between Waikiki area and the other side of the Alawai Canal. I declined to put it on the agenda. I don't plan to put it on the agenda. The reason being that I think that a proposed ferry that would run through the Alawai Canal is not very well connected to the concerns of Manoa. I think that the Waikiki Neighborhood Board and the Makalimo Ili Kapahulu neighborhood boards can take that up. I think it's too far out of our purview for us to be considering. So that's my opinion. I'm not planning on putting it on the agenda. Any other, Mayor Sofio?
Well, I'm aware that a number of other boards have accepted Laura's vision of a ferry for a presentation, and I think we should give her the same courtesy. She's worked very hard on this, and I think anything that affects University Avenue in a profound way of transferring people across the Alawai is going to affect our community. So I think we owe her the courtesy of some time to listen to her proposal. That's my feeling.
Okay, I'm gonna go to,
I hope it can be on the agenda for a meeting after our recess.
okay, going to Member Koff, then Watson. Member Koff, please go ahead.
I'd like to also reiterate that I feel the same way, that it is of concern to us because really it's our broader community, and sometimes the support of relevant neighborhood boards adds some credibility to the project, or just ascension, whatever it turns out. But at least we weigh in. I think it's important.
Okay, and Member Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, on this, I support your position on it. I think it is for the Mo'iliili Neighborhood Board or whatever to kind of spearhead this project. But I think it's really premature, actually, for any board to weigh in on it. I think that there has to, I don't even know if the city would consider doing such a thing, or they would spend the money on such a thing. So I think it's just very premature for any resolutions, and certainly not for Manoa. Thank you.
Okay. So member, this can just be a yes or no answer. Member Sofia, are you making a formal request that I put this on the agenda, the resolution from Laura Ruby? Are you,
Oh, yes, I would like to make a
and Member
formal
Koff?
request to put Laura's proposal for a ferry on the Alawai on the agenda.
Okay. And Anson is telling me that we just need one person. So again, I don't personally support this resolution, but there's been a formal request from a board member. So if there is time in August, if time isn't too crunched with other items, it'll go on. And if it can't fit on August, then it can go on a later month, again, as time allows. I might not prioritize it, but it'll get on the agenda in August or September. Any other raised hands for anyone in person for community updates? We have about 4 minutes. Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to go to announcements. Oh, right. One more thing. One more community concerns issue. So there was a resolution that some of you have been handed. It was apparently laid out on our tables when we came in. It was a draft resolution requesting for ADA compliance in the Mānoa area, basically. It's been drafted or co-drafted by some community members. I guess I'll just put on the record what I told them, which is that I think this resolution is very similar to another resolution that we recently considered and rejected. So because of that, I'm willing to put it on the agenda for a discussion because I want the drafters of the resolution to have the chance to make their case for the resolution, but also seriously consider amending it. So again, if I get a request from the people who've been drafting this or a board member, then it can go up on the agenda for discussion, and possibly after that discussion, can go up for a vote. Member Moylan? You're raising your hand. Oh, go ahead.
I request consideration of this as you just described.
All
Putting
right.
it on for discussion purposes.
So as time allows, Laura Ruby's ferry resolution we put on the resolution or on the agenda for a vote, and the ADA compliance resolution we put on for discussion only, with potentially being set for a vote at a later time.
I also request that resolutions proposed by Mānoa residents take priority over those proposed by not Mānoa residents.
Well, the formal proposal came from member Sofio. So in any case, we have about a minute and a half before we need to close out. So announcements, next meeting, we're in recess for July 2026. Next regular board meeting is scheduled on Wednesday, August 5th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. in person at Noelani Elementary School cafeteria and online via WebEx. For next meeting, all board officer positions will be up for re-election for August 2026. We also have a couple items slated for that agenda per requests of member Sofio and member Moylan. You can also send requests to me if you want to put anything on the agenda, but I doubt we'll have time because we already have a bunch of stuff in the pipe. Lastly, you can watch Mānoa neighborhood board meetings, Ololo Channel 49 on the fourth Saturday of every month at 3 p.m., as well as online at YouTube. And with about a minute remaining, this meeting is adjourned. See you all in August. Thanks, everyone.
Aloha.